studied through the book, second half of Exodus. I've entitled the second half, Just as the Lord Commanded. As a small preview, or a post-preview, I guess it is, of what has happened, is we know that they've arrived at Mount Sinai. There's some wonderful things that have happened before their eyes. You can see that we've seen that God has spoken to them. He actually gave them the Ten Commandments verbally. And they go, well, hey, Moses, we want you to talk to us instead of God, because we'll just listen to you a lot easier than we would if it was God. And so then God brings Moses in front of him and tells him about those laws, the ceremonial laws, those different types of laws, what I call applications of the Ten Commandments. And then he comes back down and he tells the people what God told him. Moses does. Then he writes it down, and then he reads it to them again. And on both occasions when he spoke it to them, they agreed to obey it. The Israelites agreed that. When he wrote it down and read it to them, they again agreed to obey. And so now we're at this spot where Moses has been, God invited Moses to bring up Aaron, his sons, and 70 elders to a certain spot where they saw God in some form there. And then God then invites, or has Moses go higher up into the mountain, into the cloud, and now he's been there, or he's going to be there for 40 days. And so what we're experiencing, and I've been thinking about this all week, one of the hardest things about Exodus, in my opinion, as I think back to when I started reading it in the King James and studying it and hearing it taught, is I thought Moses was just an actor in a video, in a play. So Moses has already read the script. He knows what's coming. And so he's just playing his part. He's gone up into the cloud. Let's see if we can get our minds away from that immaturity that I used to think about. Let's get our minds away from that. Moses has gone up into the clouds and sitting with God. And God is talking to him. God is lecturing him. God is telling him. They're having a planning session, except it's one way. God is telling Moses how to do these things that he's asking him to build. You're sitting there. You're Moses. You're now listening to what God is saying to you to do. He's giving you the plan. You're writing it down or memorizing it. I don't know how he did it without a pencil and paper or a tablet and pencil. But he's remembering all this in some fashion. I don't know if he had a miraculous memory. I know I would like to, because it would be nice if I could remember everything that I've ever been taught. That way I don't have to study it again. But it doesn't happen that way. So put yourself there. You don't know what's coming next. Moses doesn't know what's coming next. And he's going to be up there for 40 days and 40 nights. And so I was thinking about this lesson and going, this is going to be a hard lesson. Because in most cases, if you're like me, I don't necessarily want to sit here for 40 days and 40 nights listening to this. I think when I looked at my learning objective for this second half of Exodus, I wanted to convey the story of Exodus. So that when you walk away from it, you've gone, I know what's happening in Exodus. And you can go and take the specialty classes of why, this comma was put here and that comma was put there in the text at a later date. But at least you know what the scriptures say. And you have an understanding of what the story is as it's unfolding. So this is going to be a hard lesson, so I warn you. Because I'm asking you to imagine that you're Moses. And what I'm reading to you is what God is telling Moses. And your responsibility as Moses is you're going to have to, in the next hour, tell it to the congregation that shows up of all the things you remembered. And then you're going to have to implement this over the next, how many years? They're going to start this process. That's how important this is. But yet, Moses didn't know what the next word was until he heard it. So let's start that. Let's have a prayer first. Our Father in heaven, I pray for your help and guidance in delivering this message that you have left for us in a manner that shows how important it is, how deep in thought it is, and how essential it is for your nation, the Israelites, to accept and to follow. And so, Lord, as we go through this morning, let us be mindful and patient and know that as humans we're going to listen to you and we're going to apply this lesson in our hearts and in our lives. And in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Chapter 26 is where we're at. Moses was invited to come up to the mountain to God in chapter 24, 15 through 18. Whoops. And so this is an artist's rendition of what possibly could have been seen there. Notice the people, if you can see the people down in here, they're kind of just a gaggle of people. They're just group here, group there, group there. They're not organized yet. So kind of keep that concept in mind. They're seeing this thing on the mountain, that looked like the fire maybe, just some awesome sights. And so this is what they see. And so as Moses is receiving this from God, we get up to the 26th chapter here. And remember, we just got through in chapter 25 how to build the Ark of Agreement or Ark of the Covenant, the table that's going to be built, the information was given for that, the lampstand that was going to be made, the detail that was given for all that. And there was a warning each time, be careful to make them by the plan I showed you on the mountain. Why is that important? Why is it that we have to be worried about how God wants something to be done? And I think we will discover that as we go through this. You also recall at the beginning of chapter 25, a materials list was given by God to Moses, saying these are the gifts that you should receive from them, meaning the Israelites, the children. So you look through those. You got gold, silver, bronze. You've got blue, purple, and red thread, fine linen, goat hair. I'd have to go get some goats to get goat hair. Sheepskins that are dyed red. I don't know why, but that's what he's asking. Fine leather, acacia wood, olive oil to burn in the lamps, spices for sweet-smelling incense, the special olive oil poured on a person's head to make him a priest, onyx stones and other jewels to put on the holy vest and the chest covering. This is a materials list. If you've ever built a home or been part of any kind of construction process, you've got a materials list that you've got to get these items that will allow you to build these things that you're designing. And so this is a laundry list. You can look through it. You've got craftsmen of all kinds that can participate. Blue, purple, and red thread. I would not be good at that. I don't know how to make thread, one. And what little thread, the spinning wheel and all those things that people use. I'm sitting there, that's boring. But yet I'll be more than happy to go out and take some acacia wood and find me the sharpest blade and start cutting on that thing because I like to make sawdust. So each one of you can look up in there and go and say, I would like to do that one because that's where your interests lie. And so therefore you can see this materials list allows the entire nation of Israel at this time, the skill set that's out there, to be able to participate in what God is asking them and commanding them to build. So as we go through these different objects, we're at the Exodus 26, the Holy Temple or the Tabernacle. Turn to that. section for me in the Bible that you have. Scroll to it, and let's see what Moses is writing down, what he's being told. God is sitting there. I just wonder if Moses had a comfortable seat to sit on. I mean, how many schools did you go to where you sat on a rock? I don't know what he had up there, but the conditions were not like ours today. We have nice soft seats here. But he was sitting there listening to God. And God said, "Make for the holy tent 10 curtains of fine linen and blue, purple, and red thread. Have a skilled craftsman sew designs of creatures with wings on the piece of cloth. Make each curtain the same size, 42 feet long and 6 feet wide." Now remember that in the King James it uses cubits. And so if you go and research cubits, it's about from here to here, give or take a few inches. All right, so just know that the exactness that I'm giving you is an interpretation for this particular version that I'm reading. Yours may have a little different, but the point is that you should be walking away from it is God gave exact measurements. And while they may not have had a laser ruler like I have at home, which is so cool, I don't have to stretch it out. I just go click, 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 10 feet. He gave them exact dimensions. He says in verse 3, "Sew 5 curtains together for one set, sew the other curtains together for the second set. Make loops of blue cloth on the edge of each curtain of one set, and do the same for the long curtain of the other set, for the end of the curtain of the other set. Make 50 loops on the end curtain of the first set, and 50 loops on the end curtain of the second set. These loops must be opposite of each other, and make 50 gold hooks to join the 2 sets of curtains so that the holy tent is one piece." If you don't get loop-de-looped in there with all the things that they're asking for, you got to slow down and think about it. For those of you who have the skills of sewing, making curtains, you recognize this right away, don't you? This is a big curtain, is what's being made. Then he says in verse 7, "Then make another tent that will cover the holy tent using 11 curtains made from goat hair." Anybody know how they get goat hair? Do they just go and pluck it, or do they shave it? I don't know. It's a question that I've always asked. How do you get that? Because I didn't grow up in that environment. I'm sure somebody can tell me afterwards. All these curtains must be the same size, 45 feet long and 6 feet wide. And if you notice the distance given above, and this size, the 45 feet long is like 3 feet longer than the first one he asked them to build. Sew 5 of the curtains together into one set. Then sew the other 6 curtains together into the second set. Fold the 6th curtain double over the front of the tent. Make 50 loops down the edge of the end curtain of one set, and do the same for the end curtain of the other set. Moses is sitting there writing this down. Did you say 50, God, or did you say 49? Then make 50 bronze hooks, put them in the loops to join the tent together so that the covering is one piece. Let the extra half piece of the cloth hang over the back of the holy tent. There will be 18 inches hanging over the sides of the holy tent to protect it. I get that part. It's going to hang over and it's going to protect it. We do that with our houses. We do it with our porches. We have overhangs. I get that part. It's the sewing part I would be challenged. Make a covering for the holy tent from sheepskins colored red, and over that make a covering from fine leather. Use acacia wood to make upright frames for the holy tent. Each frame must be 15 feet long and 26 inches wide, with 2 pegs side by side. Each frame must be made the same way. Make 20 frames for the south side of the holy tent. Each frame must have 2 silver bases to go under it, a peg fitting into each base. You must make 40 silver bases for the frames, Make 20 more frames for the north side of the holy tent, and 40 silver bases for them, 2 bases for each frame. You must make 6 frames for the rear or west end of the holy tent, and 2 frames for each corner at the rear. The 2 frames are to be doubled at the bottom and joined at the top with a metal ring. Both corner frames must be made this way. So there will be a total of 18 frames at the rear of the tent, and there will be 16 silver bases, 2 bases under each frame. As a person who kind of likes to do construction, I like to do the framework. My wife does the painting. She makes it pretty. I can get into this section. I'm hammering out, I'm cutting things. I'm standing something up so that my wife can make it pretty. Works pretty good as a team. Verse 26, makes crossbars of acacia wood to connect the upright frames of the holy tent. Make 5 crossbars to hold the frames together on one side. 5 to hold the frames together on the other side. Also make 5 crossbars to hold the frames together on the east end, at the rear, the middle crossbar to be set halfway up the frames, and it is to run along the entire length of each side and rear. Make gold rings on the sides of the frames to hold the crossbars, and cover the frames and the crossbars with gold. Set up the holy temple by the plan shown to you in the mountain. Underline that, highlight it, go back and bookmark it. That's an important note. How many times have you tried to set a tent up? Which is basically what he's building here. Now, I like a tent. I kind of like to construct, tarp, tent poles, pull some pegs and line, use my fancy knots I learned at survival school. I kind of like to do that. But you know what is real easy is these new tents that come out and you go, boom, pop, there they are. This is not that tent. This is something they're going to construct. And I'm looking at it going, hey, as Moses is writing this down, I know so-and-so is pretty good at that stuff. I'll get him to work on this. If Moses is following Jethro's advice of delegating. But at the same token, God's still talking to him. And so hopefully, or most likely, he is still listening very closely before he gets into that planning stage. Make, it says in 31, make a curtain of fine linen and blue, purple, and red thread, and have a skilled craftsman sew designs of creatures with wings on it. Hang the curtain by gold hooks on 4 posts of acacia wood that are covered with gold, and set them in 4 silver bases. Hang the curtain from the hooks and the roof. Put the ark of the agreement containing the 2 stone tablets behind it. This curtain will separate the holy place from the most holy place. Put the lid on the ark of the agreement in the most holy place. Instructions on where to put that ark of agreement that he described how to build earlier. Outside the curtain, put the table on the north side of the holy tent. I guess that's north, right? And put the lampstand on the south side of the holy tent across from the table. He's now giving instructions on where to place that furniture that he's going to build. In verse 36, then for the entrance of the tent, make a curtain with fine linen and blue, purple, and red thread. Someone who can sew well wouldn't be looking at me. Someone who can sew well is to sew designs on it, make 5 posts of acacia wood covered with gold. I can do that. Make gold hooks for them on which to hang the curtain, and make 5 bronze bases for them. You see that materials list that we just saw? There's a lot of blue, purple, and red thread going to be made. And whoever has the skill to do that is going to be busy for a while. That also indicates that there's going to be there's a need for others to join in helping with that. There's going to be a cottage industry, if you will, going to be producing this stuff. At some point, this is going to happen. Chapter 27, he continues. Moses is sitting there writing this down or memorizing it. However, if he has the memory, I appreciate the man more and more each time I study him. Make an altar, it says, of acacia wood, 4 1/4 feet high. It should be square, 7 1/2 feet long and 7.5 feet wide. Let's see if I need to catch up. Oh, there it is, yes. So the altar. Something like that in that lower right-hand corner. Something like that. That's not an actual picture, nor is it the actual size. This is it's just something to illustrate it. So what it actually looked like, I have no idea. The altar of acacia wood, you may also recall that the King James Version calls it shittim wood. So when I researched that, basically it's a very hard wood, part of the acacia family of wood. So it's you could say, well, really, it's not really clear when you look at the history of it or the etymology of it exactly what that wood was that the King James translated to be. But either way, it's a very hard wood. Acacia wood is an extremely neat wood. I have it on my floor in my house. We put it down simply because it was hard, and I didn't realize, oh, you can find this one in the Bible. So I have a scriptural floor at home. But it's just a hard wood. It's a neat wood to work with. You need sharp tools. You can make a lot of things out of it because it's so hard, so dense. It's just a neat wood to work with in that regard. So he continues the description of what he wants to do. He says, make each of the four corners of the altar stick out like a horn in such a way that the corners with their horns are all in one piece. Then cover the whole altar with bronze. Those of you who are good at this kind of construction realize, yeah, I can make that look like the horns all one piece. I know how to do that. Use bronze to make all the tools and dishes that will be used on the altar. The pots to remove the ashes, the shovels, the bowls for sprinkling blood, the meat forks, and the pans for carrying the burning wood. And you can just see the brother out in the auditorium goes, yeah, I work with metal. I can make that out of bronze. I got my furnace at home. I can melt this stuff. His eyes are lighting up. I can make this. I can't, but he could. He says, make a large bronze screen to hold the burning wood and put a bronze ring at each of the four corners of it. Put the screen inside the altar under its rim halfway up from the bottom. That's pretty exact. Make poles of acacia wood for the altar and cover them with bronze. Put the poles through the rings on both sides of the altar to carry it. Make the altar out of boards and leave the inside hollow. Make it, here's that phrase again, make it as you were shown on the mountain. I ask a question at this point. Do you think Moses had an option? Do you think that Moses could have said, well, God, okay, it's a good design. But what if? Do you think God would have entertained that? Think about that for a little bit. And so we move to the next deal, the courtyard of the Holy Temple. I have a really good picture of what the artist may have, an artist rendering of what it would have looked like. But I thought, let's look at when you build something or you're thinking about something, at least this is what I do, and I know a lot of other people do. You take a napkin, you start drawing an idea out, right? And then you take that napkin and then you go into make it a little bit better on the graph paper, and you start manipulating it and going from there. It's not unlike what's happening right here. Moses is receiving a plan from God. He's scratching it out, if you will. Look, okay, here's where it's supposed to go. And so you've got a plan. And so now you can take it to someone and take it to the people. And so the courtyard of the Holy Temple, as you look at it says, make a wall of curtains to form a courtyard around the holy tent. The south side should have a wall of fine linen curtains 150 feet long. Hang the curtains with silver hooks and bands on tiny bronze posts with 20 bronze posts with 20 bronze bases. The north side must also be 150 feet long. Hang its curtains on silver hooks and bands on 20 bronze posts with 20 bronze bases. Now, unless you're just weird like me and you're finding this is the most exciting reading you've ever done, you can see why it is difficult to read through Exodus and stay in tune here. This is difficult. But it is a recipe. It is a plan that God has given. And we need to fully appreciate that God has given such detail to Moses. And he keeps saying, make it as you were shown on the mountain. Now, I don't know if God had visual aids up there. I'm sure he had lots of lightning and all kinds of things happening around. So maybe he had a little visual aid sitting there. This is what it's going to look like, Moses, that he called up. But he gave him a detailed plan. Verse 12. The west end of the courtyard must have a wall of curtains 75 feet long with 10 posts and 10 bases on that wall. The east end of the courtyard must also be 75 feet long. On one side of the entry, there is to be a wall of curtains 22 1/2 feet long, held up by 3 posts on 3 bases. On the other side of the entry, there is also to be a wall of curtains 22 1/2 feet long, held up by 3 posts on 3 bases. Are you still here? This is a lot of detail. Now, I'd be sitting poring over these designs going, okay, how many bases do we have so far? Somebody's got to count as they build them. Somebody's got to make sure that the checklist is marked off. The entry to the courtyard, it says in 16, is to be a curtain 30 feet wide, made of fine linen with blue, purple, and red thread. Someone who can sew well is to sew designs on it. It is to be held up by 4 posts on 4 bases. All the posts around the courtyard must have silver bands and hooks and bronze bases. The courtyard must be 150 feet long and 75 feet wide, and a wall of curtains around it 7 1/2 feet high, made of fine linen. The bases in which the posts are set must be bronze. All the things used in the holy temple and all the tent pegs for the holy tent and the wall around the courtyard must be made of bronze. Pretty specific. I was at the store the other day. I kind of like tent pegs. I've always wanted the perfect tent peg. Because when you put it in the ground, the wind blows, you want the thing to hold and stay. And I've never really found the perfect tent peg. I've got a pretty good one that Ed Home made for me. It's a round stock of metal about this long and a spring or a circle at the top, kind of like a ring. He welded together, and it's about this long. It goes in deep. But I'm still looking for that perfect tent peg. Maybe I need a bronze one. Don't know. Anybody have any bronze tent pegs? All right. Last section here in this chapter, verse 20. Command, it says, the people of Israel to bring you pure olive oil, made from pressed olives, to keep the lamps on the lampstand burning. He didn't say bring we mixed it kind of olive oil with some avocado oil. He said bring some pure olive oil. And even when you go to the store, I'm looking at the bottles looking for pure olive oil now. And most of that stuff is, it says pure on the front, but you look on the back, mixed with some other stuff kind of thing. And I'm sure I can find it, I just haven't searched as long as I should. Aaron and his sons must keep the lamps burning before the Lord from evening till morning. This will be in the meeting tent outside the curtain, which is in front of the ark. The Israelites and their descendants must obey this rule from now on. So that lampstand, whatever it might have looked like, had to be burning from when? Lamps must be burning before the Lord from evening till morning. So at night, they have to be lights on, and in the morning, lights off. Some rules to follow. This one is neat. I don't know if you can see all that. It's a little busy. But this is what the best dressed priest would wear. And the detail that in this is just, I think, impressive. For those of you who sew, you may be thinking, I could build that. I don't know if you can say build that, but you could sew that. Those of you who are into jewelry and jewels and so forth go, that'd be a nice challenge to do. Chapter 28. Tell your brother Aaron to come to you along with his sons Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Separate them from the other Israelites to serve me as priests. Make the holy clothes for your brother Aaron to give him honor and beauty. Think about that statement. Honor and beauty. And then take a look at that artist rendering of what it could have looked like. Only guy that's going to be wearing that is this guy. Give him honor and beauty. Tell all the skilled craftsmen to whom I have given wisdom to make special clothes for Aaron, clothes to show that he belongs to me, so that he may serve me as a priest. These are the clothes they must make: a chest covering, a holy vest, an outer robe, a woven inner robe, a turban, or as the King James likes translated as mitre. And just looking back to how naive I was in years gone by, I couldn't figure out why anybody would wear a mitre on their head to cut angles. Mitre gauge, in case you're wondering. I see some people that have done some woodwork. So that was just me at a young age. But the mitre, basically, when you look at the original, it was talking about a headdress, a head covering. Turban is probably the better translation of it, maybe not. We can debate that at a later class. But the fact is, there was a turban and a cloth belt. The craftsman must make these holy clothes for your brother Aaron and his sons. Then they may serve me as priest. The craftsmen must use gold and blue, purple, and red thread and fine linen. Can't use the sackcloth that I had left over from the corn that I bought at the feed mill. Can't use that cloth. It's specific of what kind of cloth is going to be used from that materials list that we showed earlier. Verse 6. Use gold and blue, purple, and red thread, and fine linen to make the holy vest. Skilled craftsmen are to make it. Not a beginner, not someone that just found out how to pronounce needle. It is a skilled craftsman. At each top corner of this holy vest, there will be a pair of shoulder straps tied together over each shoulder. The craftsman will very carefully weave a belt on the holy vest that is made with the same materials, gold and blue, purple and red thread, and fine linen. Take 2 onyx stones and write the names of the 12 sons of Israel on there, 6 on one stone and 6 on the other. Write the names in order, from the oldest son to the youngest. Carve the names of the sons of Israel on these stones in the same way a person carves words and designs on a seal. Now you're getting into some folks that have that skill, that ability to actually, take something small and delicate or a stone type thing and then make an inscription on it. I write poorly anyway, but to have me write on a stone, I'm not the right person to do that. Someone who's good with a hammer and chisel writing, in a way that it's readable or legible is what needs to happen here. Let's see. Then put the 2 stones on the 2 straps of the holy vest as reminders of the 12 sons of Israel. Aaron is to wear their names on his shoulders in the presence of the Lord as reminders of the sons of Israel. Make 2 gold pieces to hold the stones, and 2 chains of pure gold twisted together like a rope Attach the chains to the 2 gold pieces that hold the stone. I cannot do that. But I'm sure there are people among this nation that had that skill. And plus, he had said earlier that he had given certain craftsmen the knowledge and skills of how to do that. The chest covering in verse 15. Make a chest covering to help in making decisions. The craftsmen should make it as they made the holy vest, using gold and blue, purple and red thread, and fine linen. The chest covering must be square, 9 inches long, 9 inches wide, and folded to make a pocket. Pretty specific. Put 4 rows of beautiful gems on the chest covering. The first row must have a ruby, topaz, and yellow quartz. The second must have a turquoise, a sapphire, and an emerald. The third must have a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. The fourth must have a chrysolite, an onyx, and a jasper. Okay, I'm going to have to go to some encyclopedia and start looking up these things, because I don't know what they look like. But I'm sure there's somebody that goes, hey, reaches down and grabs something, and it looks like a rock to me, but it looks like a gem to him. And until he describes it, oh, okay, it's got value now, because that expert told me what it was. And then when he goes to his little workshop, shines it all up, you go, hey, that's pretty nice looking. Most of us have bought jewelry for, most of us men, well, maybe the women too, have bought jewelry for our wives. My wife says she wants an amethyst. I go to the jeweler, I say, I need an amethyst. And I go, what is it? And then he shows me what it is. And so I bring it home to my wife. And she says, I say, this is an amethyst for you. And she says, no, it isn't. It's an emerald. Well, either I got it wrong or the jeweler got it wrong. But either way, I'm taking it back. My illustration is that there are people in this nation, Israelites, they know this stuff. And so they're going to go out searching. So you can see how this request, this command from God is permeating throughout the entire nation of Israel. And he further continues the plan of what he wants. Put gold around these jewels to attach them to the chest covering. There must be 12 jewels on the chest covering, 1 jewel for each of the names of the sons of Israel. Carve the name of one of the 12 tribes on each of the stones as you would carve a seal. And it's not those things that like to swim around that he's talking about here. He's talking about something you would stamp on a document that says this is from this particular important person. This represents this tribe. Some places call it a coat of arms, that represents my family, my tribe. And so he's asking for the same thing here. Make chains of pure gold, twisted together like rope for the chest covering. Make 2 gold rings and put them on the 2 upper corners of the chest covering. Attach the 2 gold chains to the 2 rings at the upper corner of the chest covering. Attach the other end of the 2 chains to the 2 gold pieces on the shoulder straps in front of the holy vest. This is detail that we need to recognize God is giving to Moses and saying, do it as I showed you on the mountain. This is important. Make 2 gold rings and put them at the 2 lower corners of the chest covering on the inside edge next to the holy vest. Make 2 gold rings and attach them to the bottom of the shoulder straps in the front of the holy vest. Put them close to the seam above the woven belt of the holy vest. Join the rings of the chest covering to the rings of the holy vest with blue ribbon, connecting it to the wooden belt so the chest covering will not swing out from the holy vest. God's thinking about a lot of things in his design. For me, when I built this, if I were building this, I'd have to go step 1. Okay, and then do it. When I finished that, I'd go back and see what step 2 is. I think everybody has done that to some degree when you make a recipe. When you bake and you follow a recipe, there's an order in which you do things. Even I have figured that one out. And so we must keep in mind that he's giving them an extremely good plan. How much time? Okay. Not so much that I'm going to go on fast forward, but I am going to speed up just a little bit. But this is important for us to know that Moses is writing all this down or memorizing it. He's hearing it for the first time. When Aaron enters the holy place, he will wear the names of the sons of Israel over his heart. On the chest covering that helps make decisions, this will be a continual reminder before the Lord. And put the Urim and Thummim inside the chest covering so they will be on Aaron's heart. When he goes before the Lord, they will help in making decisions for the Israelites, so Aaron will always carry them with him when he is before the Lord. The Urim and Thummim is a great discussion, and I highly encourage you to Google it. It's not exactly known what those two items were, but they were small enough to go into a pocket. Okay? But it's a good research item if you'd like to have a homework assignment. And next week, or whenever we meet again, which we'll need to talk about here shortly, tell me what you found out. Make the outer robe to be worn under the holy vest using only blue cloth. Make a hole in the center for Aaron's head with a woven collar around the hole so it will not tear. How many have had that problem with stuff? Make balls like pomegranates of blue, purple, and red thread. Hang them around the bottom of the outer robe with gold bells between them. All around the bottom of the outer robe there should be a gold bell and a pomegranate ball, a gold bell and a pomegranate ball. He kind of repeats that a few times. Aaron must wear this robe when he serves as priest. The ringing of the bells will be heard when he enters and leaves the holy place before the Lord, so that Aaron, this is important, Aaron, so that Aaron will not die. Make a strip of pure gold and carve these words on it as you would carve a seal. Holy to the Lord. Use a blue ribbon to tie it to the turban. Put it in the front of the turban. Aaron must wear this on his forehead. In this way he will be blamed if anything is wrong with the gifts of the gifts of the Israelites. Aaron must always wear this on his head, so the Lord will accept the gifts of the people. Make the woven inner robe of fine linen, and make the turban of fine linen also. Make the cloth belt with designs sewn in it. Also make woven inner robes, cloth belts, and headbands for Aaron's sons to give them honor and beauty. Put these cloths on your brother Aaron and his sons and pour olive oil on their heads to appoint them as priests. Make them belong to me so they may serve me as priests. Make for them linen underclothes to cover them from the waist to the upper parts of the legs. Aaron and his sons must wear these undercloths when they enter the meeting tent and any time they come near me, the altar to serve as priest in the holy place. If they do not wear these clothes, they will be guilty of wrong and they will die. This will be a law that will last from now on for Aaron and his descendants. I don't know how much more detail you can get, but Moses is taking all this in for the first time, just like we are if we used our imagination. This is the first time we're hearing this. There's a couple of takeaways from this I would suggest. We have this group of mass exodus from Egypt. We have them gathered here at Sinai, and we are watching as we hear the process of them moving from an unorganized group of people following Moses in a cloud to a group of people that are organized in a manner that we have come to know about Israel. What a transition. What a conforming. And just as today, okay, 1 second, I'll finish real quick. And just like today, when the gospel comes into one's heart, it doesn't change you right then, but what it does do is it grows and it changes you over time. As you begin to know what Christ wants, you personally, because of the teaching of Jesus Christ, begin to change and conform your behavior, just like most of these people will do over time. And it's going to be done because Moses, we'll see later on, followed the plan that he was shown on the mountain. Thank you for your attention.